Welcome to Ask Angela, relationship advice for love after trauma. I'm Angela Amias, here to help you navigate intimate relationships as I answer real questions about love, loss, and everything in between. This is where we untangle old patterns that keep us stuck and discover new possibilities for connection. Relationships after trauma need a different kind of wisdom, and I'm so glad you're here. Hey there. In this episode, I'm going to be answering Michelle's question. Michelle writes, how do you establish healthy relationships and attract healthy people? I find myself always attracting the wrong, unhealthy type, and I'm sure self-confidence and fear come into play. Dear Michelle, let's begin with the part of your question about how to attract healthy people, because having a healthy partner is obviously a requirement for establishing a healthy relationship. Whether we're talking about romantic partnerships, friendships, or family, relationships are always the work of both people involved. This means that if you're not attracting healthy people, or more accurately, if you're not attracted to healthy people, there's no possibility of creating a genuinely healthy relationship. When you're dating someone who is not a healthy partner, it doesn't matter how much care, attention, love, work, and time you put into the relationship. It doesn't matter how much you want it to work. You simply don't have the power to single-handedly make a relationship healthy. Instead, what happens when you start dating someone who doesn't exhibit the ability or desire to have a healthy relationship is that the relationship is limited by what they have to offer. More accurately, the relationship is limited by what they don't have to offer. I'm going to tell you a story, and perhaps it's one that you're already familiar with. Once upon a time, River and Rowan met, and they fell in love. And in the beginning, River swept Rowan off her feet, and Rowan couldn't believe her good luck. It seemed that she'd finally found the one. And then one day, things started to change. River became more and more dismissive of Rowan, not returning her calls and canceling plans at the last minute. River made unkind remarks about Rowan, complaining about how she did this instead of that, and telling her 55 ways in which she wasn't good enough and 73 ways in which she could be better. As time went on, Rowan tried everything she could think of to get back to the good times that she'd had with River in the beginning. She tried changing the 73 things about herself that River criticized. But no matter what she did, there were always more and more ways in which she never seemed to measure up. Rowan bent over backwards and twisted herself into a pretzel in an attempt to make River happy. She asked for couples counseling. She spent hours talking with friends, trying to get to the root of the problems in her relationship. She convinced herself that she was the problem. She told herself that she expected too much and her standards were too high. She tried expecting less from River, in case that would relieve the pressure, so she could be happy in this relationship again. She told herself, sure, this relationship has problems, but what relationship doesn't? And if I leave, who's to say I won't start dating someone who's even worse? And in her quietest moments, when she was alone with her thoughts, Rowan wondered if the real reason why River didn't treat her well was because she didn't deserve anything better. So here are a few things that I know about unhealthy relationships. They wear us down. They devour our self-confidence, and they confuse our sense of reality. We convince ourselves that our standards are too high and our expectations for relationships are unrealistic. First, we blame ourselves for how we're treated, and then we blame ourselves for putting up with how we're treated. We lose our footing and our faith in ourselves, and we start to believe that the solution to all of this is somehow to lower our standards for what we're looking for in our partner. The wrong conclusion people commonly draw is this: if we expected less, maybe then we'd be happy with whatever we got. It's easy to make this mistake, and I've seen lots of people do this as a way to cope with an unhealthy relationship, or 2, or 3. In a way, it makes sense to assume that if a partner isn't treating you well, it's because you're failing to meet their standards. Because if you were enough, surely they'd appreciate you and treat you better, right? This makes a twisted kind of logical sense, but it's actually completely backwards. Looking to an unhealthy partner to reflect back an accurate image of you, in other words, to reflect back your innate value and worth, is like looking into one of those funhouse mirrors. You're only ever going to see a very distorted version of yourself being reflected back. It's hard to develop a true sense of self, much less self-confidence, when you base it on an inaccurate reflection. While this experience of dating someone who doesn't recognize your value can activate an impulse to work 20 times harder to prove to your partner that you're good enough, from my perspective, dating someone who doesn't appreciate you and treat you well is a clear indication that you need to raise your standards for what you're looking for in a partner. I know this idea of raising one's dating standards stirs up a lot of fear for people who've had their self-confidence and sense of self-worth eroded by being treated poorly. But I can tell you that this one single action is a powerful step toward breaking out of the cycle of unhealthy, unsatisfying relationships. To simply raise your standards. In toxic relationships, so much energy gets expended just trying to convince your partner that you deserve to be treated better. But really, the only person who needs to be convinced that you deserve better is you. Once you really know what you deserve, you won't feel that impulse to try to convince anyone else. If they don't get it, they're not worth your time or energy. Another way of saying this is that making the shift from unhealthy relationships to healthy relationships starts with developing a better relationship with yourself. It means treating yourself with respect. It means appreciating the qualities that make you uniquely you. It means treating yourself with kindness and care, and having the expectation that others in your life also treat you with kindness and care. It means forgiving yourself the way you forgive others, and listening to yourself the way you wish someone else would listen to you. In other words, the foundation for your relationships with others is your relationship with yourself. Treating yourself as worthy of love and care is the first step toward ditching your attraction to unhealthy partners who reflect your fears about yourself. Once you're no longer setting yourself the challenge of convincing someone else that you are good enough, unhealthy partners start losing their appeal remarkably quickly. One more thing on the topic of attracting and being attracted to healthy partners. As humans, we are pretty much wired to associate familiarity with safety. This means that what's familiar, even when it's not desirable or healthy, is typically cataloged as safe. You can see how this goes disastrously wrong when you have a long history of unhealthy relationships. Unhealthy relationships are familiar, and therefore, at the unconscious level, we assume that they're safe as well. This means that breaking out of your old pattern of dating unhealthy partners requires making a commitment to pursue relationships that feel unfamiliar, relationships that feel different and uncomfortable, and maybe even a little scary. Finding love takes courage. When it comes to creating a healthy relationship, the first step is having a partner who has your best interest at heart, who is willing to engage with you in the work of nurturing a mutually fulfilling relationship. Without this, any efforts that you make to fix, improve, or change a relationship are doomed to fail because, remember, relationships are created by both people together. When you have a partner who is equally committed to building something beautiful together, you're no longer investing all your time and energy into proving to them that you're deserving of care, kindness, and respect. In a healthy relationship, that's a given. Once you're no longer trying to convince someone else to treat you well, you can begin the work of figuring out which healthy relationship skills you may have missed out on learning in the past, and what sorts of relationship patterns you may have internalized earlier in life that are creating difficulties in your relationship now. Changing these patterns takes a willingness to self-reflect, to dig deeper into the ways that you and your partner react that may be creating difficulties, and to communicate openly with your partner about these kinds of topics. With a healthy partner, this work still takes time and effort, but it actually pays off. It moves you in the direction of a shared vision for what kind of relationship you want to have together. And on that note, Michelle, I'm wishing you the very best in your journey to venture out into new territory, to raise your standards for what you deserve in relationships, and to create something beautiful in your life. And on that note, listener, thanks for tuning in. That's it for this episode of Ask Angela, Relationship Advice for Love After Trauma. If something in this episode resonated with you, come join the conversation at askangela.co. And if you'd like to submit a question of your own to be considered for a future episode, you can also do that at askangela.co. I'll be back soon with another episode, and until then, lots of love.